Hey everybody, welcome back. These are some in-laws from hell that I have personal beef with. My mother-in-law says I shouldn't wear white on my wedding day because I'm not pure. Sorry for the extremely long post. I love the long posts, bestie. More of those. I, 32 female, am planning my wedding to my fiance, 30 male, but his mother has a problem with every choice and decision I've made. For context, I met his parents, his father and stepmother, before I met him. I worked closely with his father, and after a family tragedy, I met my now fiance. One of his younger sisters passed away. That's sad. Sorry to hear. I was already in a relationship when we met, but it wasn't a good one. He never stopped trying, though. Hopefully you waited until you were out of that relationship. After I found out that I was pregnant, my boyfriend at the time decided he was not going to stick around. Fiance's parents took me in and held me through a lot of sadness and grief. In comes my knight in shining tinfoil. His words. He took me to the doctor's appointments, helped me when I had morning sickness, and brought me chocolate and ice cream when I just needed to cry it out. That's when it all started to go downhill. Mother-in-law would make sly and rude comments about my weight. While you were pregnant? Does she know you're eating for two? And how she wished her son would, quote, find someone who would have waited to make a family with him. For all intents and purposes, my son is his. Fiance is the only dad my son has known. Father-in-law would say things along the lines of, if I wanted my son to date you, I would have introduced you to earlier. I just shrugged it off and just focused on being as healthy as possible for my baby. That's stressful to be around that, as if you don't have it hard enough. I have severe anxiety and depression, so making sure my mental health is stable is what's most important, but not their words. It just kept getting worse. Fiance wasn't able to be there for the birth of my son because he was working outside of the state at the time. He was sad that he wasn't able to be there, but calls me every day to check on us. I had to have an emergency C-section because my son and I both had issues with the anesthesia and our BPs plummeted. I almost passed away and my son wasn't breathing when he arrived into this world. I later found out that mother-in-law and father-in-law never told him I was in labor. Okay. I'm not a fan. And he was still at home when I went to the hospital. He could have been there. Ooh, we got some meddling that honestly, you can't really come back from that. That's kind of messed up. A week later, my son and I were able to go home and recover. Mother-in-law started immediately sending my posts and TikToks about how to get back into shape. Give it a minute. I've always been a bigger girl and struggled with my fertility. I had my son, 3 male, when I was 29. They always told me how important it was for their son to be with someone who cares about their health. Mother-in-law would also talk nonstop about how her and her daughter went right back to their normal size after having kids. Isn't that nice? Lucky. Mother-in-law also liked to point out how skinny her daughter was, even while she was pregnant. I don't like it one bit. I found out I was pregnant with my first daughter a month before my son's first birthday. Fiance and I were ecstatic that our little family was growing, even if it was faster than we'd hoped. All 3 of my children were conceived while on BC. BC is birth control, I'm assuming. After our daughter, 2 female, was born, we talked about possibly getting married. I've never been super girly, but the one thing I always imagined was my wedding. I told him I wouldn't have a problem making it official, I just don't want anything super traditional or uppity. It's a celebration after all. I had lost my stepdad as a teenager, so I wouldn't have had anyone to walk me down the aisle. So our wedding would look a little different, and I didn't want him to propose to me unless my family was there also. Fast forward to my son's 2nd birthday, my son and I were on a scavenger hunt for his birthday present, and it ended in our family standing in a semicircle around my fiance on one knee. It was beautiful. Oh, be still, my heart. He got me a beautiful hexagonal moss agate ring. Hey, is it agate or agate?
Agate.
And my mom and grandma were there. Literally 5 minutes later, mother-in-law was asking about the wedding plans. I absolutely despise when people do this. We just got engaged. If you're not engaged, people are like,
when are you getting married? When are you gonna pop the question?
then you get engaged and it's like, well, when's the wedding? You get the wedding done and then it's like, when are you having kids? Shut the f up. Stop rushing people. Because then people are being rushed into situations without like thinking clearly, and not because they want to be in that situation, but because of like pressure from everybody else.
I don't need your opinion.
Fiance and I had agreed on a fall wedding. She said we should do it in the spring. We agreed on burgundy, teal, and dusty rose with silver accents. She said we should do purple and gold. How about new? I want a rustic, bohemian wedding. She said it should be formal. Well, it's not her wedding, is it? I want to wear an informal white dress and cowboy boots with a flower crown instead of a veil. This is where I decided mother-in-law was never going to be okay with fiance and I being together. She told me I shouldn't wear a white dress because I'm not pure. She says it isn't proper or right for me to wear white because I had children outside of wedlock. Oh my lord. Super traditional, I see. But here's the kicker. This woman wasn't married until 5 years after having 3 children. She wore white. Ah, the irony. She's just trying to make you feel bad. It's almost like they're projecting their own problems on you. Maybe she feels that way about herself. I explained to her that none of the women in my family were pure before getting married and they all wore white. And I wasn't having a traditional wedding, so traditional aspects of a wedding weren't important to me. She lost it, calling me a and telling me I was ruining the sanctity of marriage. She's been married twice before and is still technically married to her second. Father-in-law and her only held a ceremony, not legally married. I know this because I was literally there. You see the projection? Don't throw stones when you live in a glass house, honey. I ended the conversation about it and told my fiance that I didn't want their opinions on our special day. Is your fiance kind of privy to these conversations? Because it kind of seems like he's being a bit of a pushover and he needs to stand up for you. His parents said they weren't going to pay for anything if they didn't get a say in the planning. We never asked them to pay for anything. Most of the planning is around the reception anyway. I decided it would be fun to do a potluck/barbecue. We provide the meal and dessert, everyone else provides the sides. The venue I found is free for a day use and a $50 cleanup fee for the night use. Sounds great to me. Your wedding, your rules. It is outside with well-kept porta-johns, and they will rent tables, chairs, and all the other odds and ends for a $100 charge. Perfect. This is the thing about accepting money from parents. You accept the money from the parents, and then they kind of have the right to say whether you should invite certain people, where you should hold it. I feel like it's almost like a way for them to like get their grubby little paws all over the planning. It's cleaner to just do it yourself. But if you're accepting money from your in-laws or your parents, you kind of have to be a little bit like willing to make compromises. Even with 2 small children, we could afford everything we needed. My dress, shoes, and accessories are only $150 combined. I'm hand making all the bouquets. I don't know that word. Boutonnieries. Boutonnieries.
Boutonnieries. Is that how you say it? We shall say it in a French accent.
Because it makes sense. And centerpieces out of felt designs I found of lilies and succulents, and old formula cans. The bridesmaids' dresses are about $80 a piece and can be worn a multitude of ways. And the groomsmen's shirts are $30 and are just going to be styled with a nice pair of blue jeans and boots. The colors I chose give the wearers the ability to wear them more than once for a decent price. Sounds like you're being super accommodating to everyone in this wedding. Mother-in-law is now saying I'm tacky, and I'm just trying to exclude her and sister-in-law from everything. Well, I mean, if all you have to say is criticism, then I probably wouldn't want to include you either. Just saying. Sister-in-law is one of my bridesmaids and told me she won't be helping because she doesn't like the theme. Okay, again, this is literally not your wedding, not your problem. You're not paying for it, they're paying for it, so what is the big deal? Why do you even care? One of my younger sisters is going to be our photographer. She's trying to get her business up and running and asked if she could gift me her time and use my wedding as practice/advertising. I agreed immediately. Another one of my sisters is an amateur baker. She's giving us a small cake to cut. The list of things I'm upcycling for this wedding/reception is long, but hopefully you get the picture. Ain't nothing wrong with that, baby girl. Truth be told, the wedding industry is so unbelievably out of control and you can DIY a lot of it. It creates more work for you because you're not relying on vendors to kind of realize your vision, but you can save money on a wedding, and one of the ways that you save money is by doing things yourself, by getting other people to help out, by holding some sort of potluck where everybody contributes. I have lots of friends who DIY decor, like I had a friend who used dried flowers instead of real flowers because the flower bill was going to be so insane. She also DIY'd this like moss selfie mirror for the reception, which was a way for people to take photos. And I had another friend who had people people make the desserts for her wedding. All in all, those weddings I think cost like maybe 10 grand or less. Pretty good considering most weddings can exceed that quite easily if you're going with vendors. Mother-in-law is fuming. She doesn't even want you to get married to her son either, so like, what does it matter how you do it? At least you're not spending a lot of money. To placate her, we agreed to move the wedding to the spring of 2024. But in November of 2023, I found out I was pregnant again. I would have been 7 months pregnant at the time of our wedding. We decided to postpone the wedding until after I had the baby. She's been pressuring us to get married ever since she found out we're having another... I'm not going to use that word. That word is not used in polite conversation. For all of you keeping track, yes, that's 3 babies in 3 years. I had our third and final baby 3 months ago. I am thankful we postponed though, because 4 months later, my mom passed. 3 months after losing my mom, my last surviving grandparent passed. So in the span of 6 months, I lost my mom and grandma and was a month away from having my baby. Ugh, girly pop. You'd think that they'd try to make your life a little bit easier. The birth of my second daughter was traumatic to say the least. And a week later, I had to go in for an emergency surgery to remove a gigantic hematoma from my abdomen that formed because of the traumatic birth. After 3 months, I'm finally healed from surgery and able to work out and get back into healthy shape. I'm still grieving the loss of 2 of the most important people in my life. This year has made me come to the realization that what's important is we are happy and my family is safe together. Fiance says he wishes he could have had more time with his mother-in-law. He misses her too. We're hoping to have our reception in autumn of 2025. We've decided to elope and only have the closest people there with us when we say our vows. Yeah, honestly, at this point, it's kind of like your in-laws are just creating massive problems for you. And it's like, if they don't want to be happy for you, then they shouldn't be a part of the wedding. Either you don't have the wedding with them or you elope. I think it's worse to have a wedding and not invite them. I think eloping is like, by the way, we're married. I'm still doing all the things I planned for our wedding, tacky or not. I hope mother-in-law hates it. My mother would be so proud of how I'm handling my issues with my mother-in-law. Sickly, sweet customer service always pisses a Karen off, and my mother lived to piss Karens off. The best way to deal with someone like this is to not let them get to you. And like your mother does, sickly sweet. Kiss and a slap. Don't ever show that they've gotten to you. Keep your cool, because nothing you say or do is going to change how they feel about you. I mean, in some cases, you need to have like kind of a showdown with your mother-in-law. But I love the decision to elope. And I think after watching a ton of these videos, a lot of people have told me that they're just eloping because they don't want to deal with the pressure and the drama and the BS. It is my opinion that you should not bring any problems to the bride and groom that don't need to be brought. It's already a stressful enough process, especially considering you were doing a lot of the stuff yourself. Plenty of other things to think about. You don't need drama and BS put on your plate for no reason. Yeah, I would recommend going low contact with them. I do wish that your fiance would stick up for you a little more. Based on what you've shared, it doesn't really seem like he is as involved, but wait, we have an update. This is more of an edit, but I'm not very tech savvy and I'm brand new to stuff like this. For context, I was diagnosed with PCOS and endometriosis at 16, and I was told it would be virtually impossible to have a viable pregnancy. It wasn't until I was 29 that I had my first viable pregnancy. I have 5 angel babies waiting for me in heaven. Oh my goodness. Sounds like you've had a really, really difficult time. You can't let it get to you though. My mother-in-law is my fiance's stepmom. It's giving evil stepmother. Not that it matters, but I saw a lot of comments saying that we should go no contact with his mom and her fake husband. Mother-in-law and father-in-law have been together the entire time I've known them, and they were together for many years before that. Mother-in-law was around more than fiance's bio mom ever was, so that holds a lot of weight in his life. Oh, fine. Mother-in-law had a very rough upbringing, not making excuses, just giving context. She had her first in high school and was on her own within a year of having her child. Then why judge other people? Like, do you just hate yourself? Is that what's really going on here? Kinda sounds like it. She worked hard to provide for her baby and still graduate. With a life like this, you would think that it would make you a little more understanding of like non-traditional couples and non-traditional pregnancies and marriages, especially because you went through it. So why make someone else's life hell? Maybe people made her life hell. Maybe she felt like that was the only way to go about it.
Hurt people hurt people.
She married her first husband, who was extremely abusive and controlling. She had 2 more children and was able to leave after 10 years, a long fight for her life. She met her second husband, who had 2 children already, and 5 years into their marriage, number 2 transitioned. They separated but raised their children together still. In mother-in-law's words, there was never any love lost. It was just the man I loved and married no longer existed. I mean, it sounds like she's understanding in this case. Why not be understanding with you? Sometime after that, she married and started a relationship with father-in-law. Father-in-law and mother-in-law are recovering alcoholics. Most of the rude and nasty things said about me were during this time. Once again, I'm not making excuses, just trying to give context. Yeah, I guess that gives a little bit of context. But if you've gotten to a point with alcoholism where it makes you a nasty person, probably time to stop. Since my mom and grandma passing away, I've seen a softer side to both of them. They've been sober for just over a year and a half. We are still low contact, but I'm hoping one day we can see this as just a rough patch and move past it. Kinda sounds like you're here to stay, baby girl, so it's better for everybody if they just suck it up. Mother-in-law likes to control everything. She makes all meals for every holiday and birthday. She hosts every time she can. It can be frustrating, but she has some health complications in the last 4 years, which she had no control over. So I guess this is the one thing she can control. Her giving her opinions and suggestions is just another way she's trying to control the life around her. It can be about control. I know sometimes it's about teaching. I know sometimes it's like the control thing is a way they show they care. There's a right way to do it. Offering help is not the same thing as trying to control a situation. The fact that she kind of says like, you know, nasty jabs to you about your body and stuff like that, and the fact that you're not pure, so to speak, it's kind of just mean for no reason. Number 6, we decided to elope. Seeing as I don't have much family left and all the hurdles we are having to jump over, we realized it would be better for all of us if we just hosted a huge celebration later after we say our vows. I will be wearing my white dress and cowboy boots, and that's on period. I will be decorating in our agreed upon colors, and none of the plans for our reception have changed. I will be celebrating for the life and success of a marriage I never thought would happen. Thank you all for helping me work through my issues and being a sounding board to the things flying through my head. I hope you're all blessed in this life. I don't know if you need any advice from me or from us, but get a load of the dress, guys. This isn't her in the photo, but this is apparently what her dress would look like. With some cowboy boots, girl. Yeehaw. Am I the a-hole for replying to a mother-in-law with quotes from Glenn Close as Cruella after she made it clear she wanted to outshine the bride?
Quiet down there! I said quiet in my court!
Your babysitter! So it was a slow day at the bridal shop I worked at, and I was doing some work at the computer. Then this woman comes in with her bestie and looks at me and says, "Where can I find a sexy dress for a wedding? I just lost 100 pounds and I want to outshine the bride." I beg your finest pardon. Bold of you to say that. At first, I was going to congratulate her for her weight loss journey until she said that last part. She would then go on to state before I could answer, "I want to wear either white or red to really make a statement."
That's what you would call tacky.
White, as you know, is a well-known no-no for a wedding and if you aren't the bride. But red is a tricky one as it's usually associated in bridal with adultery. And for someone to wear it, not in the bridal party, is usually claiming the groom as theirs.
All the little symbolisms.
People have done this on purpose. Exes, people who slept with him, jealous besties who wanted him. The wearing the red is a little bit more unclear. I've seen people wear red to a wedding and it looks really good. I think wearing the red is like pushing it a bit, the rules for the wedding. I say if you want to wear red, but like it's worse if people know that you've like had an affair with the groom or something like that and then you choose to wear red. If you're just some rando wearing red, that's different. Anyway, now having that, my go-to response was to channel Cruella de Vil. And I said, "Oh, you poor thing. I'm so sorry for you." She ignored this and proceeded to pick out some short red club dresses I had. Then after putting one on, asked what I thought of it. And I said, "Oh, darling, red isn't really your color." She audibly huffed and walked back into the dressing room, and to my surprise, because I never saw her grab it, I was basically refusing to be an accomplice to this. She came out in a glamorous, rhinestone-covered, open back, and sheer bodice wedding dress. How are you not embarrassed for yourself? Not only do you want to wear a dress that symbolizes you sleeping with your son, but you also want to wear a wedding dress where people would mistake you for the bride and the groom is your son.
It's not making sense, Bestie.
She looked like she was trying to recapture her wedding from her 20s at 55. I stayed silent. She didn't want to know what I thought and then asked, "What's your return policy in case my daughter-in-law's friends decide to spill wine on me?" I would say no returns. And if they spill wine on you, then you deserved it. For what reason? Is it because you're an absolute nightmare? I have personal beef with you, madam. The way she's gallivanting around and bragging about the fact that she's going to ruin her son's wedding. Like, shut up. Take several seats. This woman knew exactly what she was doing and the consequences, but we had a no return policy, so I smiled sweetly, and in the most beautifully sassy and petty tone, I said, what can I say? Accidents will happen, and purchases are final. That was nice, satisfying, yet deserved. She then looks at me and finally catches on and asks, do you have a problem with me? I do. I have personal beef with you, in case you're wondering. I've done nothing wrong. Let's think. You walked into a bridal shop loudly proclaiming that you want to outshine the bride. You want to wear a white dress to your own son's wedding in order to upstage the bride. You want to wear a red dress that is inappropriate to the wedding of your son and obviously try to hurt the bride's feelings. So yes, you haven't done anything wrong yet, but you want to do something wrong. Oh yes, you do. I replied, ma'am, you come into my store and ask me to help you ruin a wedding. She clutched her figurative pearls and said, I said no such thing. To which I said, no, you said you want to outshine the bride, which is how you want to ruin the wedding. But I have news for you. As I work in the industry and you wear white to that girl's wedding, you will look like a fool. And that's before you get so embarrassed after wine accidentally spills all over your dress, which no bridal salon in their right mind will take back a dress covered in wine. They'll take back a dress that came with issues. They won't take back a dress, honestly, in the bridal industry, that you're done. Like, you put the deposit down and that's it. You pay for it. She was so flustered by how I spoke to her, she went back into the changing room and left with her shirt inside out and her pants on backwards. I'd like to think I saved the bride from the shadows. So are you the a-hole? No, my dear, you are the hero. You are my hero. Cause for real. Like, seriously? What did you expect the women in this store, this bridal store, how did you expect them to react?
Oh, goody. Yes, let's ruin a wedding.
Absolutely not. Not your audience, my dear. Too bad you don't know the bride to give her a heads up, but you may have to put the fear of karma in mother-in-law. Good job. OP response, I wish I did. I would have contacted her immediately. Hopefully I scared this woman enough with the consequences of her actions. I'm curious to know what happened at this wedding. You are not the a-hole, my dear. You are what we like to call a hero. To the mother-in-laws in this video.
Cash me outside, how about that?
Subscribe.